It's inevitable. That's the only thing I can say, bro. They are inevitable. This French team, genuinely unstoppable. I'm trying to think of a way to stop this French team, and I just don't know how. I just don't know how. And credit to Morocco, man. They tried. But even then, France probably should have been up in that first half. Morocco might have had a good first half defensively and holding them to 0 goals, right? But France probably should have been up 2-0, right? That first chance by Upamecano easily could have been a goal. And obviously this penalty that Mbappe wins. And look, people are going to say, man, that's a dive. No, that's a clear penalty. And on top of that, the fact that it took so long for VAR to say, okay, this is a penalty, and then for Mbappe to finally get the whistle to take the penalty, it took ages, like 5 years, like 5 minutes, but felt like 5 years. We should not be having that, man. Clear and obvious, right? I thought that was the thing. It's got to be obvious. If it's not obvious, let it go. So for me, that was a shameful, process by VAR right there. But look, Morocco get to the half 0-0, and let's be honest, Morocco don't really create anything this entire game. Yeah, so for Morocco to get to halftime 0-0, that's big for them. But you always felt like with France, they were gonna find a way. And I think there's just too many game changers in this team for you to win. At the very least, there's too many absolute superstars in this team for them not to score a goal, right? You look at, Paraguay in particular, who they only scored 1 goal against, but Paraguay created nothing, right? And they had to they Paraguay offensively, they did the Mbappe special. If you know, you know. Now, the bigger teams, I just don't think they're going to be able to play like that, and they're not going to want to play like that, right? So, I don't know how you stop this French side, man. It feels like, how do you stop the unstoppable? How do you stop the unstoppable? Because that's how good this French team is, man. That Mbappe goal is absolutely uncanny. What can you do? It's not bad defending. You just It's just a goal that's, the highest of attacking order, right? And then the same with that Dembele goal. Uses Mbappe's run, screens the defender in front of the keeper so the keeper sees his strike late. That's top tier stuff. That's why he's the Ballon d'Or. And when you have that as probably, the second option on your team, that's incredible. Like, he's the second option on the team. You know what I mean? Elise, unstoppable. And then the offensive depth. I mean, we can go on and on, man. Like, these guys brought on Mateta today, and Mateta probably could have scored 2 goals today. It's incredible. It's actually incredible. I look at the successes within the games that some teams have had against France, right? You look at the low blocks that Paraguay offered, or the low block that Morocco kind of offered for this first half, even though France could have scored a few. It's like, how long can teams sustain that? I just don't think so. I really don't think so. Even versus Senegal in the first half, where they struggled because the midfield was just too open, right? And that was when they were playing Dembele in the middle and Olise on the right. But with Dembele on the right, you actually get a lot more robust of a midfield because Olise is going everywhere. And honestly, they're interchanging sometimes too. So all of a sudden, that entire midfield problem seems to be a little bit better because there's less space and there's less, gaps in between the midfield lines and the offensive lines all the time, and the midfield lines and the defensive lines. So now that that's kind of patched over, what do you do versus this team? I just don't know. I just don't know. They're absolutely incredible today. To be honest, Morocco never had a chance. Let's just be real. I don't think Morocco ever had a chance. Not only is this team incredible offensively, but you look at the top 5 teams in the world, and I think the one thing Morocco have against them that, the other top 5 teams in the world have that they don't have is a tier one attacker. They have the guy, right? And some of them have multiple, right? Like, first off, you look at Spain, obviously they have Yamal. France doesn't need to be said, right? Mbappe, Dembele, Olise. Argentina have Messi, and then even Alvarez, you could argue, and Lautaro Martinez are up there, right? They have attackers of that level. England with Harry Kane, Jude Bellingham, even Saka, if you want to put him in there, it's up to you, but you can put him in there. Rashford, on his day. So they have that kind of attacker. For Morocco, no Saibari basically means nothing for them. Like, they have nothing. And they obviously also lost Eze Abde, which was huge, and that could have been a game changer. But even with him in the team, I don't know if that changed the result really, because they're not tier one attackers. Saibari's been having an incredible tournament, but is he a tier one attacker? I don't know. Is Brahim Diaz a tier one attacker? Definitely not. So for Morocco, I think that's the thing that's probably missing for them to really get to the level where you're going up against France and you're going to be able to put the ball in the back of the net, because they defended well enough today, right? Without conceding some, really incredible goals, they probably get the job done, maybe, or they get a better result if they just had a better attacker. And obviously that's why, a lot of times we say, man, imagine if Yamal picked Morocco. And I don't want to, bring that up all the time because I feel like that's kind of beneath this conversation. But the only reason I bring it up is because then Morocco have a tier one attacker, right? So if Morocco can develop that kind of attacker, all of a sudden I think the sky's the limit for Morocco. Still, Morocco, top 10 team in the world, probably top 7 team in the world, really. So this is still a great achievement for them. But you just never had a chance because this French team is just so incredible on the ball. As far as what they can do with the ball, what they can do in transition in particular. Like if you open the game up versus this team, it's night night, bro. It's over. So especially when you're in a World Cup and you have to push for a goal and you want to push for a goal, it's almost suicide. But it's like against the principle of the game, right? It's like but we want to go win the game, so we have to go and push for this goal. So it's tough, man. I feel bad for Morocco in a way, but look, this French side is just inevitable. And look, I still have England as my winners, but that's getting shakier by the day, by the day. And I think if there is a team that is going to beat France, and I think the way to beat France is you have to play a low block and then have exceptional counters, then I think England is the team to do it. And people are going to bring up Spain, and I understand why, because Spain obviously scored 7 goals on France in their last 2 games. But that was a France without Olise. That was a France with, premature center backs, Upamecano, who's not as mature, Saliba, who's not as mature. A France with less options, quite frankly, right? So, there's no more Colomwanis in France and whatnot. So for me, I think the French team they're equipped enough to deal with Spain now, especially the Spain that has an injured Nico Williams and a Yamal who's quite frankly not in the best of form so far. We'll see, anything can change. But for me, I think France can deal with Spain. It is England for me who have the best weapons and the best tools, who are best equipped to deal with this French side. If anyone's going to beat them, I think it's going to be England. Now, obviously, Argentina is also in the mix. I'm not going to discount Messi. You look at what Messi and Argentina have been doing against some of the weaker sides in the competition. If you play like that versus France, especially with how open some of those games have been, I don't think Argentina can hang. I just don't think so. I really don't. And I think this French side is a lot more robust than 2022. They're a lot more dangerous than 2022. It's not the likes of Giroud and Griezmann in midfield and Conte, with all due respect, because that 2022 French team was incredible. But this side, legendary, legendary. If they don't win the World Cup, is it a disappointment? I wonder. Because, like I said, it feels inevitable, right? This team feels inevitable. It almost feels like they already have the trophy. They're just waiting for the crowning ceremony. I don't know. You guys let me know. Is it a disappointment if this French side doesn't win the World Cup? And by does it like is it less of a disappointment like if they just get to second place? Is it as much? I don't know. Probably not, but it just feels like everything is in their favor to win the World Cup. Like they just have the best players. They have the best chemistry, the best jerseys, everything. They got it all, man. They got it all. They got the juice. Now, let's talk about the future for these teams because Morocco, obviously, tough loss, but I don't think anyone's ashamed to lose to France, especially this France side. I don't think, you blow up anything. I think one thing for Morocco is the question of the manager, right? You fired Walid or Walid resigned, right? And from there, I thought that was kind of crazy because he was so close to the World Cup. It's like, man, why don't you see through the cycle? But more power to him. I don't remember if he resigned or fired or he was fired. You guys let me know. But if he was fired, I think it was a wild decision. If he'd resigned, it's like still crazy because you could go live a World Cup with this team. But I think their coach right now isn't particularly bad. I think the approach today it wasn't my favorite, but it's like what else could you do? What else could you do, man? I mean, there's not much he could do without his best attacker there. On top of that, your best left winger was out too. I mean, Agüerd was out as well. Your best left center back. You had to play Mazraoui at center back today. So I'm not gonna be too harsh. We'll have to see how Morocco do in the next AFCON, to really judge him. But I think he's gonna be fine. Now for France, well, like I said, they're probably headed towards the World Cup. A huge clash with Spain, most likely. I just don't know. I just don't know how you stop this team, man. This team looks unstoppable. And for Deschamps, by the way, it's been an incredible career, an incredible tenure as France manager because we start when he got him in 2014, I believe. 2014 World Cup, loses to Germany. Heartbreaking loss. I remember watching it, man. Then afterwards, you get to the Euro final, heartbreaking loss to Portugal, extra time. We all know the story, right? But that was a great, margin of progress as far as quarterfinal World Cup. Now you're in the Euro final. And then you get to the 2018 World Cup, you blast through the competition. You blasted Croatia 4-2, right? I still remember that Argentina game as well. Great campaign from the likes of Giroud. Well, Giroud didn't score actually. Griezmann, Mbappe, of course, Pogba, right? Conte. So incredible campaign, an incredible World Cup win. Then, obviously, 2021 Euro out to Switzerland. Yikes, that was a tough loss. But you win the Nations League right after, and then you get to the World Cup final, and we all know how that game turned out. But for France to be in these big games under Deschamps is huge, right? World Cup final 2022, Euro semifinal 2024, Nations League semifinal, and now you're in again another World Cup semifinal with a chance to get to a World Cup final. I mean, Deschamps has absolutely killed it, man. Yes, they've only got a few trophies, right? Like they've got the Nations League and they got the World Cup, but they're constantly in the big matches, constantly, right? And I think a lot of people would prefer that rather than just having the one World Cup and nothing, right? Like you look at Germany 2014, they won that World Cup, haven't done anything since, right? So it speaks to not only Deschamps and how he's manages his team, but also French football and how they manage their whole development and their pipeline. It's incredible. It's incredible. And you look at this France team and talking about the future, sometimes I think these are like golden generations, and golden generations obviously fade. You look at the likes of Belgium, you look at the likes of Spain in 2010, and all of these teams that have these great golden peaks, but eventually they go through their fade, and they go to their downfall and their banter era. I look at France and I'm thinking, will they ever have a banter era? Will they ever have a downfall? Like, yes, when Mbappe leaves and Mbele leaves, and that's going to be tough. Those are going to be big holes to fill. But you look at the likes of Doué and Barcola and Cherki, and you think, yeah, maybe it's not Mbappe and Dembele, but these guys are already, best in the world attacking options. You know what I mean? These guys would already walk into any team. So I think France, it's not only how do you stop the unstoppable, but how do you continue to stop the unstoppable? Because these guys are going to be good for a long time. For a long time. Like the next 10 years, France will still be in the big matches. It's incredible. Man, speaking of France, I want to bring up the Ballon d'Or race because I don't know how to call this. Like, it's going to be very interesting to see how the Ballon d'Or is decided this year. Because if you're going off of being the man in the big moments and being there for the biggest trophies and the biggest competitions, it's Dembele. It is Dembele. I mean, no one else really fits the criteria. Mbappe had an awful Champions League campaign, and Dembele's having a good World Cup. He's not having the best World Cup in France. You could argue he's not top three player for France right now. It could probably be Mbappe, Elise, and maybe Upamecano, and then Dembele. He's in the mix, but he's not inarguable. However, when you look at the totality of his season, this brother, for the amount of flack he gets for not having played a lot of minutes and being injured in the early part of the season, as far as like impact per minute on the field, there is not a better player than Dembele. As far as for every minute he's on the field, he is absolutely killing the game. It's Dembele. However, he just doesn't have the most minutes, right? And I think that matters to people. Then you look at obviously Mbappe, and when it comes to Ballon d'Or, the World Cup is usually a heavy influence. Heavy influence. I mean, you look at Mbappe, top scorer at the World Cup right now, probably going to end as the second or maybe even first, the best World Cup scorer ever. Already cemented as the best World Cup player ever, in my opinion. Surely he's up for it, right? And then obviously Harry Kane is in it because 70 something goals. It's incredible. Second most ever in the 21st century. So we have to respect that. And I mean, if England win the World Cup, then it's undoubtedly his. It's undoubtedly his. So I don't know what happens, And one thing I'm interested to see is for Harry Kane's specific, case, this brother has 70 something goals. But if he doesn't win the World Cup, will he still get the Ballon d'Or? And if he doesn't get the Ballon d'Or, does that feel like a robbery? I don't know because he didn't get the World Cup and he didn't get the Champions League. So I don't know. It's usually with that many goals, like do those goals matter if you're not winning the trophies? That's what the conversation is about now, right? Because if we're talking about amount of goals, then Mbappe should have been won a Ballon d'Or. But people would say to Mbappe, "Oh, Mbappe scores a lot, but those goals are useless because PSG or Madrid never won UCL." So I don't know. You guys let me know how you feel about the Ballon d'Or race. I think it's going to be very tight, especially if Dembele steps up a little bit more. Like he had a great goal today. I think he might have been the best player on the pitch today, you could argue, because he preserved a few more assists. But on top of that, if he steps up and he really, starts to bang in some of the output and he ends up, right behind Mbappe and Messi, in terms of, goals. I mean, there's a case. There's a case to be made, especially if France make it to the final and Dembele has a crazy final performance. It's a lot of if, but it's not impossible. If that happens, I really do wonder he might end up the Ballon d'Or. It depends, man. But we'll see. There's a lot of football left to be played, a lot of awards left to be figured out, a lot of voting still to be done, but I can't wait, man. It sucks, man. The World Cup's almost over. We are on basically what? We got the 3 quarterfinal matches left, the 2 semifinals, and then the final. That's 6 matches left. Look, if you care about third place, that's you. Um, Usually teams just throw out, bench players for that game. So we'll see what happens. But yeah, man, incredible. Thank you guys so much for watching. It's been your boy Ollie Footy. Make sure you guys follow, like, and subscribe. We're on the road to 3K. Until next time, we out.